my phone to just double confirm if we are live. Let
Yes,
me
looks like live.
see. We are?
I guess
Okay.
so. I just see something called lives. Yeah.
Live. Yeah. So yeah, we are. Awesome. Okay. So we'll just wait a few seconds if there's
Sure.
anybody. And sometimes it takes a while more.
Mm.
Or we can start.
Why
Okay.
don't you just
So
start and talk? Yeah.
yeah, okay. So we're going to be on Hearty Chats today. So I'm Sofie from Hearty Mums. And today on Hearty Chats, we're having our special guest, Dr. Sunita Rai, who's the author of my first book of mindfulness. So Hearty Chats is where we have experts and moms who talk about matters that are close to our heart. And over the next few weeks, I have the pleasure to interview a few children book writers. But today we're having Dr. Sunita Rai. Well, she is a mindfulness teacher, a well-being coach, and an established psychotherapist. She's also a counselling and psychology lecturer and supervisor. And she's the executive director of the Center of Mindfulness Group and also the managing director of the Holistic Psychotherapy Center. So she holds a doctorate in psychology and researches on the impact of mindfulness on children and adults, while also designing customized curriculum for organizations, schools, and the public. So welcome, Sunita. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Sophie, for having me. And I just wanted to also say that I'm actually very thankful to you for actually starting off this Hearty Moms and really appreciate what you're doing for society because many of us, when COVID came up, we were looking at everyone else and somehow, I guess we did not target in specific to moms. Perhaps even not even realizing that they may have additional challenges besides work, managing their kids, and also helping the kids with their home-based learning, which can be a challenge by itself. And the more
Yeah,
kids
that
you
was a
have,
big subject.
yes, and the more kids you have, the more challenging it gets. So I also just wanted to take this opportunity to thank you for starting off this group. Yeah.
Oh, thank you. That's very kind of you. Well, Sunita, you'll be sharing with us today about how parents can nurture mindfulness in their children. Can you tell us a bit more about what is mindfulness?
Sure. So when we talk about mindfulness, right, it's always about living in this present moment. That's the main intention. And while we live in this present moment, we also don't want to lose focus of the future. So it's about living in this moment and not losing focus of the future at the same time. And John Kabat-Zinn, who is a professor who kind of to put it simply, he kind of like started circular mindfulness. And he states that mindfulness, right, is the awareness that arises from just paying attention and on purpose. And there in this present moment and non judgmentally. So it's a very beautiful definition because like there are four key things to look at in that. And in fact, if we want to go a step further, we can also look at mindfulness in a simplified format, right? Is about self-awareness, paying attention, and also practicing acceptance over everything that we experience. I won't go further because we can actually separate it into what we call state mindfulness, trait mindfulness, formal practices that we do, informal practices that we do. And you know, the whole idea of mindfulness is like there's just so many angles to it. But I guess to summarize, right, the intention of mindfulness also is that both the process and the outcome is important. So you know, a lot of life skills that we might be learning over life is about we talk about outcome a lot, but very seldom do we talk about the process.
Yes.
And yeah, so in mindfulness, the idea of both process and outcome is important. Yeah.
So it's really looking at the journey and experiencing it,
Yes. Yes,
and not
and that's
just the goal.
yes, and that's lovely the way you put it, right, Sophie, is about experiencing it. Maybe one of the challenges we have in life might be that we are always so focused on the target that we forgot the entire journey, you know, like what was I experiencing moment to moment? Was it pleasurable? Was it not? Were there pleasant moments? Were there not? What were the struggles? What did I learn? And all of that. We get overly focused on, okay, for example, for a child is, I want to get my results that are all A's. But how was that journey for the last 2-3 years, aiming for that A, for example? And for example, did I form a dislike for education in that process?
Yes.
Or did I fall in love more, perhaps? I'm not sure. So that's the idea of like experiencing it, not just, looking at that end target all the time.
Yeah, I like how you put that. And it's also because I think learning is a journey, right? It's lifelong. And that's what our
Yeah.
government emphasizes as well. So it's not just about this one exam or this major national exam. It's for the rest
Yes.
of your life. I mean, I'm still learning even as an adult. And we
Same
learn
here,
every
still
day. We
learning.
learn new things.
It's still learning.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like even myself, right? I didn't know about Hearty Moms, and then when you talked about it, something new that I learned, and also to understand your inspiration for wanting to do it, and that's something that see when one person inspires someone else, and then we get this rippling effect. So I
Yes.
love that part of the philosophy that we just do one small thing and then it picks up. Yeah.
Yes, yes. We just want to share with the world.
Yes,
Okay.
exactly.
What are some benefits of mindfulness? So we talked about what mindfulness is. What are some benefits of mindfulness?
Okay, I won't go too detailed, right? Because there are like so many benefits. Maybe I just
Definitely.
comment on a few of them, right? Yeah.
Yes.
So what research has shown is the positive impact on quite a few areas like well-being. So enhancing like well-being, happiness, resilience, improving attention, reducing stress, even reducing rumination, where we keep thinking about the same thing again and again and again. And this could be
Right.
even for a child or a parent, when mistakes happen and we just keep thinking about it again and again. So mindfulness even helps in that area of life. Better emotional regulation. And a lot of times when I do programs in schools for children, for teenagers, and also for their teachers, and this comes up pretty often, like the idea of like how do I regulate my emotion, what do I do with all of these emotions when I'm pissed off with someone, or when there's a meltdown, what do I do? And mindfulness helps with that too. And of course
Yes.
I think there's tons of research in areas of depression, anxiety. Maybe I can comment on one research, right? This was, I think, about 10 years ago, and it was a meta-analysis of like 38 or 39 studies. I can't remember the exact number. And they found that there was direct improvement in the areas of emotions and cognitive processes. So, and there was another research also that showed relationship improvement and even how couples connect with one another. So,
Oh,
so to
yes.
me, this is like beautiful, right? I mean, it's not just to do with the so-called tangible part of the brain, right? But it also includes the emotional part, the
Yes.
connection with another person. So, yeah, I mean, in a nutshell, perhaps these are some of the key findings. There's a lot more. There's a lot about the brain restructuring, and expect. So, I mean, this might be good for like parents, especially, right? And so we always talk about how mindfulness impacts the prefrontal cortex. And I always say touch those areas because it's easy to then follow, right? So the prefrontal cortex actually get enhanced, which is very much to do with like executive decision making, pro-social behavior, and then the center part of the head, right, which is the brain part of it, which is to do with the amygdala. So being able to calm the amygdala so that it can
Yes.
assess the back part of the brain more or less, which is the hippocampus, the memory part of the brain, especially with long-term memories and all of that. And you might have experienced this or seen parents doing this. They always tell their child when the child does something right, and then they'll say "kwai, kwai," this kind of
Oh,
thing,
yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And you realize it's exactly the amygdala area that they're actually
Yes.
touching, right? And we do
Oh,
these things, and sometimes you're just not aware, but it's really very meaningful in that sense. And so mindfulness actually shows a direct impact on the limbic system, that the areas I just spoke about. And so it's also a way of brain restructuring or the neuroscience behind it.
yes.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, so many
Oh my
benefits.
God.
I mean, from well-being to, just daily life, like you mentioned about focus. It's
Yes,
great for children who are studying for exams. I guess definitely
exactly.
helps to calm their nerves and help them to be more focused, more connected, more grounded. Wow,
And
so
thanks for
many.
mentioning that. In fact,
Mm.
we run programs to help with exam stress, test and
Mm.
exam anxiety. And I remember one student. This was not direct to exam, but an interview that he went for, and he mentioned how he went for this interview, and he was sitting outside and noticing how his anxiety was rising, and then the dry lips, and then the heart rate was increasing, and then he practiced a mindfulness technique that he had learned in our program, which was called coping breathing space. And he said
Nice.
after he practiced that and went into the interview, he realized he was a lot calmer. And he was surprised because he has tried other techniques like just, deep breathing and things like that. But this made a difference for him. And to me, these are the narratives and stories that is good to take note of, because when we use it, we see the impact. And
Yes.
obviously, this particular teenager was using it in his daily life. Therefore, when it came to a situation where there's exams or interview, he knew what to do with it. Yeah. So I thought that
Wonderful.
was
This is a
something
great
interesting.
story.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. So with all the benefits of mindfulness and really seeing how even knowing a simple technique like coping breathing space that you were mentioning for this teenager. So how can parents nurture mindfulness in their children?
Okay, great question. I will just take a different angle to it if you do not mind.
Yeah, please.
You know how we always talk about what our kids should be doing, what teenagers should be doing, what the youth should be doing, right? Um, However, we sometimes perhaps overlook the fact that we are in the picture too. Whether you're a parent or a teacher or a sibling or a relative, we have a very big role to play on how kids turn out. So I'm just going to take a slightly different angle to this question and talk about parents before the children, if that's
Love it.
okay.
Yes,
Yeah.
love it.
So
Totally aligned with you.
thank you. So we all want to be successful, and every parent wants their child to be successful. I have not met a parent who says, I wish my child would not be successful. I wish my child would not be happy. I've never heard that. So every parent I come across says, yes, I want my child to be successful. Now, again, what's our definition of success, right? Will differ from person to person, parent to parent, teacher to teacher. And so I'm not going to go into that definition, but I do find that all of us agree that we want children to grow well, to flourish, to be happy, to be a positive contributor to the world. These are things all of us agree, regardless of our worldviews and stuff, right? So that's one great starting point. We all know that we want our kids to be successful in life. If I use this as a definition, right? And what mindfulness basically does is contributes to that, whether it's a child's well-being or their academic performance or their contribution to their world. And the intention is very much, how do we bring up children who are wholesome?
Mm.
So that's the intention there. How do we bring up kids who are wholesome? And a mindful child, in a way, one way to look at it is like a sponge, right? And I guess all of us have washed dishes and stuff, so we know how sponge works, right? So the intention of a sponge, right? The child is always willing to learn, absorb, right? And absorb more depending on what they find useful. The difference with a mindful child compared to any other child is the child also knows when shall I squeeze out some of this so that I can allow new
Mm.
experiences to come in. So a mindful child has that as a difference. They're not always adding on. They also know, you know what, my container can be filled, so to speak. I need to know what to let go, what to accept, how to move forward. And I think that that's the difference of a mindful child. And a mindful parent contributes to this child turning this way, right? So there is this strong relationship between the two. When a child is mindful but the parent is not, it's not going to go very far because this child now is going to struggle through, right? But when the parent is mindful, they know how to guide this child towards mindfulness. So it starts with the parent, not the child. So while
Yes.
we can equip children with mindfulness skills and all that, an area that's always overlooked is the parents, the teachers,
Mm.
right? The
Yes.
society, and
Yes.
and those are the areas I think like Sofie, yourself, and myself are very interested in. Is like
Mm.
the wider population, not just the child alone.
Yes.
And if you don't mind, I'm going to just share a story, right? This
Yes.
happened, I think, 1.5, 2 weeks ago. I was at Bishan Park, and I'll just let parents to reflect on this because
Mm.
I'm pretty sure many parents might have experienced something like that, right?
Mm.
So I was at Bishan Park, and I saw this gentleman. I was pretty far away from them, but then his voice attracted my attention, so I actually just shifted my gaze from what I was doing towards him. So it's this gentleman with his wife and a young child. I guess the child is probably maybe 6, 7 years old, about there. Now, by the time I turned my gaze to it, so I have no idea what happened, right? But by the time I turned my gaze towards him, he was shouting at another person, a lady, right? And he was just shouting away, and it was really loud. And that lady also shouted back at him. So basically, two people were screaming in the park, right? And his son was holding his hand and also holding the mom's hand. And because he was screaming, he let go of the child's hand and continued screaming towards that lady. Now, I have no idea what went wrong. I'm not saying whether what he did was right or wrong. We have no idea what really happened. Um, but what went through my mind is this: how was he reacting? Was he responding or reacting? And what's the difference, right? So I will not go into the difference, but in this case, he was not responding. There was no real clarity in his mind. Instead, what happened was instead of operating from the prefrontal cortex, he was operating from the amygdala. He lost all control and started shouting at another person. So, how was he reacting? Now, a question for us: how do we react? How do we respond to situation? Now, the second thing that went through my mind, and this was just, I think this was just like a 2 minute episode, but all of this went into my mind. And the second thing was, what is your child learning? Yeah, what has this child learned from this episode? Now, if he sees his father screaming, would he grow up to be screaming? If his father won the battle because he was louder, would he grow up thinking that to win battles we need to be just using the top of our voice? If the father's actions were like all over with the hands moving, if he learns that if you have more aggressive actions, chances are you get your way. Is that what he's going to do when he's older? So I guess the question I'm asking here is, what are we role modeling? Whether you're a parent or a relative or a teacher, what are we role modeling? So let's take a classic example. I believe most parents read to their child, especially when they're younger, right? I mean, when they're teenagers, they're probably say, okay, get out of my room, give me my space.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Quite a
so
different one.
very different, yeah. But they wouldn't mind talking to you about other things. But let's take a child and a parent reading to a child, right? That's a very great moment to connect and to talk about values, beliefs, or whatever that might come up, right? And then we always say we want kids to read more. But are we reading? So if parents want their child to read more, parents need to read more. If parents want their child to be mindful, the parent need to be mindful. If they want their child to pick up a skill, they need to pick up a skill. Now, I'm not saying every skill a parent needs to pick up, but the bigger question here is, what are we role modeling? So if we tell our child to do certain things, we must be willing to do certain things too.
Yes. For
So
example, putting your phone away at a table, at a
exactly,
dining table.
classic example, right, Sofie? We always say don't look at your phone while you're eating. Are we checking our phone while we're eating? So there is this idea of device detox, right? Which when I work with families on mindfulness, this is something we talk about. Like, could your device be kept away for 30 minutes while you build relationship? Because you have the device whole day. I mean, why is that the way that we start with things? So So I guess to coming back to your question, how do parents nurture mindfulness in their children, if that was what it was? And I would say it really starts with the parents being mindful. I would say that's really the first step. Second step is really practicing it. Knowing it as a knowledge is not good enough. As a parent, we need to practice it and then bring it into our family, children, and all of that. So really, mindfulness is like investing in the psychological capital of your family. It's really an investment.
Yes.
And sometimes I say start with small things. Like most families I know do eat together. So perhaps mindful eating, and maybe not an entire meal, maybe 3 mouthful. I mean, if you tell an entire meal, the child will like, oh,
Yes.
really? So
It will take 2
mouthful.
hours to finish.
Exactly. So yeah, I would say really, let's role model it. Let's start small. Things that the child is doing anyways. Of course, learn for ourselves, and then bring it to the child's daily life. There is no need to tell a child, do sitting meditation for 30 minutes. They're like, 30 minutes of my life is gone. So yeah.
Okay. Wow. Thank you so much for sharing and speaking out from this angle, because I totally align with that. I've got, parents who have come to me and say, my child has a problem. So the finger is pointing there. But, my approach is like what you said, always start with the parent. May I have, a session with you, or like, can I have a chat with you? And let's find out more from your angle,
Exactly.
what's happening. And so, yeah, truly, parents need to role model as well. They are the role models, and children are picking up not just from parents, but from teachers, as you said, from society. So schools also have a role in a way, because we can teach the kids, but when they come back to the family, things might, be undone because of certain situations, or parents are not supportive of what the kids have learned, or are unaware or not educated about it. But one thing you said that I really like was the sponge analogy, that children absorb everything. But a mindful child is one who's also able to let go in a way, because children can hold up so many things. And if you're always holding up so many things, from a young age to adulthood, you can, there are a lot of emotions and other things that you hold that don't serve you anymore as you grow older.
Exactly.
And then you don't know how to let go of that. And that's where we're seeing a lot of adults or working professionals who may have certain issues that need further support with and attention on.
Yeah. And you're right, Sofie, and that's exactly the part where you and I are in the space where while people might come to us for their kids, many a time we start with the family, we start with the parents, and it's not with the intention to blame anyone, because there is no book, right? I know there are books that are published about parenting, but there is really no book on how to be a parent or how to be a sibling. People share nuggets of what worked for them, but yet every family needs to find what is working for them individually. And the culture is different. The family dynamics is different. And mindfulness doesn't have one way to do it. Rather, it provides like an entire platform and say, see what works for you. And in fact, one of the things that I wrote about in the book is the 10 intentions of a mindful parent. 10 is 10 intentions of a mindful parent, and the reason for doing that was also to kind of go from the angle that we're not saying that this is the way, but rather as a parent, when you look at everything that's out there from the field of psychology, parenting, mindfulness, and whatnot, right? Pick what works for you and for your child and for your family. There is really no magic formula. And if mindfulness doesn't work, throw it out. Take what works for your family. Yeah.
Wow. I love what you're saying. And it certainly, there's no one size fits all. And I think mindfulness is a tool, a starting point to start a conversation. And that's why I love this book that you have written so much. Yeah, I've been looking at it and reading it with my daughter as well. So many wonderful tips on different themes. Can you just tell us a little bit more about this book?
Sure. So this one is more of an activity book. So the intention of writing it was purely from the angle of having an activity book that parents could use. Part of the motivation came from this, right? I went to Popular Bookstore and I was looking for mindfulness books. And one of it was to look at books for children. And I came across quite a few, and those were excellent. And the question that came to my mind is, how do we combine everything from an activity plus knowing a bit about mindfulness plus having reflections? And that was basically the motivation for this. And the journey started a year ago. Why a year ago? It's not the writing. The writing was pretty straightforward. And I was sharing with you this earlier, Sofie, that I wanted something that was meaningful for me. And so it started with illustrations. So the book has a lot of illustrations, a total of 25 for this one. Yeah.
Yes.
And you're going to show that? Wow. Okay. Thank you. Yes. So there are a lot of illustrations, and all of this were done by, so all of this were done by one of my associates that I work with very closely, my niece, because she likes art and she's creative. So she was the other person, and two of my ex-students. So I actually started with that, where I knew the themes I wanted, and I wanted it to be meaningful. Therefore, I approached people that I know to do the illustrations. And the writing part was a lot faster. So the whole book has got 25 themes. They're all activity-based. So there are activities, reflections, experiments, mindful coloring. And I've also shared somewhere in the beginning of the book how to do mindful coloring. Because people think that mindful coloring means I just color slowly. That's not what it means. It's a lot more to it, like noticing the colors, noticing the package, knowing why you chose certain colors. How does it reflect your mood in the moment? So there's a lot of depth behind just coloring. And so that's like the sections of everything you can find inside. So the way it was written also was to go with very simple concepts of mindfulness, and then it gets deeper as you go further down in the themes. So, for example, in the beginning, you have something on peace, and then later on, it goes into social, emotional learning aspects of mindfulness. And so the intention very much is more for experimenting. So what I'm also trying to say is, wherever you start is fine. You need not follow like, let me go to page 1 and then do this. There's really no necessity for it. If a topic interests you, start there. Or if, let's say, you find that today we want to talk about kindness, and maybe start with that then. And then also have conversations around it, like, how could I be kinder in my daily life? And maybe with the younger the child, the lower the target I usually recommend. So if it's a very young child, maybe what's one thing I can do every day to be kinder? Just one thing, right? And of course, that also means the parent needs to do one thing, right? So that part is really important. While the book is targeted at children, the intention is the parent needs to align with that and go along with the child so that both could engage mindfully. I hope that makes sense. So the intention is activities, reflections, coloring, and also for them to have a deeper conversation.
Yes, I like that all these activities and suggestions, they contribute to bonding for the parent and child. And that's really precious. I mean, sometimes some parents actually, run out of ideas, conversation ideas. So these are great conversation starters as well. It just gives them an idea, and it's all along this theme of supporting the mental emotional wellness of children.
Exactly.
Very, very positive values, like you say, resilience, peace, kindness, compassion. It's really wonderful. So this is the first book of mindfulness, and I know it's available already in major bookstores. And Popular, Times, and Kinokuniya.
Amazon.
Amazon.
You can get the soft copy also on Amazon and stuff. So that's great. Yeah.
Wow. And I know you've got one book that you just launched as well.
Yes.
Mindfulness for the Family.
So this is the second book. This is Mindfulness for the Family. So this is targeted more for the whole family rather than just parent and child. So it's like there could be grandmas at home, there could be the helper, everyone is included. So So the intention is very much how could, besides parent and child, how could you bring some of this as a family activity? So
Very nice.
I'll just give one example of, before I talk about the book, right? I'll just give one example today. Today is my dog's birthday. This dog that I adopted about 8 months ago.
Happy birthday to your dog.
Thank you. So that's his birthday. So we got him like a small cake and stuff. So part of the intention of making everyone feel like a family is also like I got my mom-in-law to feed him. I got my helper to feed him. And just to share one example, right? My helper gave him a better birthday wish than I did. Like she said, when you be a good boy and all that. And I thought that was fantastic, right? And so this is just one thing, having that very clear intention that like it's just a cake, and of course it sounds like really small, but it's the intention behind it, that are we helping everyone to feel connected? Are we helping everyone to be contributing towards this, whatever our intentions might be? And so this book, right? This book was actually written for kids age 5 to about 12 years old, 5 to 12.
Okay.
And the beginning part of the book, right, actually focuses on the wisdom of mindfulness. So slightly different from the other book, which is very activity based.
Right.
This one about I guess one third of the book focuses on like the wisdom of mindfulness, setting directions, intention, and purpose. Those are the key area. And in fact, one of the beginning questions is, who am I? That's one of the beginning questions, like, who am I? I mean, first, as a parent, like for myself, I'm not a parent, but as a parent or as an educator, as a psychologist, the key thing we always ask is, who am I? Before we look at children or spouses or friends. And one of the things also written there is to write your purpose statement. So there is a section left for parents to reflect on their purpose and to write down their purpose statement before proceeding. Because sometimes what we understand from many parents is that they have given birth to a child, they've gone through that journey, and after a while they forget. Why did they have the child in the first place? What was the intention behind it? So it's to help them come back to that. What was your purpose? And what do you want to do with this mindfulness book? So it's to have that very clear in the mind before moving forward. And in the book itself, there is a lot of let me just flip. So this will be available in the bookstores in another week's time. So it's not yet there. Sorry about that. It's another week's time. So you can see that there are some like activities like this.
Nice.
Yeah, and so there are about. That's a good question. Now that I want to see how many there are. Okay, there are 30 of them. After starting, it's how many did we write in the end? Yeah. So there are 30 of these. There are coloring sheets, games, puzzles, reflections, guided questions, like how should we ask questions, poems, songs, even creating your own songs, and and guided meditation, guided mindfulness practices along. So you would realize that there are multiple activities created even in this book, and the intention is very much that every parent, every family is unique.
Yes.
So we need to find what works for you. So writing a book is one thing, right? But what works for that family? So there is 30. There is no necessity to take all. See what works for your family. And in fact, I'll just show you one more thing, right? This might be... here it is. So just to give you an example, we also wanted to be very upfront about the idea that what works for a parent may not work for the child. So even mindfulness practices. So for example, how do I do this? Okay. So this is for the parent, and then this is for the child. So it's the same. It's called awareness of breath, but the parent has a different practice from the child. And the intention of doing that was also to really help a parent pick that out, that what works for you may not work for your child. So be constantly reinventing, customizing, so that the child knows that, okay, mommy can do 15 minutes. I just need to do 1 minute, and that's great. Right?
Mm,
So there is
okay.
no necessity that each party should do the same thing or the same length or the same frequency. Yeah.
Mm.
I hope that
Wow,
gives
I
a bit
like
of
it.
insight. Yeah.
Yeah, it's wonderful. And I love that part when you said, writing down your intentions and what is your purpose. Who am I? I think that's really powerful. It's something that many people just forget or overlook. As
Yes.
we get so caught up into society and we just want to get things done very quickly. And
Yes.
yeah, we start rushing and we hurry our own child and we figure, what is the intention behind all this? So
Yeah.
I like what you're saying. Wonderful. Thank you for sharing with us all this. And I know you're also writing another book, so looking forward to hearing more about it when it's ready. So
Thank
lots
you.
of books coming from you. Very exciting. So I've just got a bonus question for you.
Sure.
So our group is about Hearty moms, and to me, a hearty mom is one who is fulfilled and happy, and
Mm-hmm.
therefore she's able to nurture happy, thriving kids, right? And one thing I always encourage moms to do is to really take time to do one thing in a day that makes you happy, because that helps to fill up your cup. So
Yes.
my question for
Wonderful.
you would be, what is one thing that you do in the day to fill up your cup?
Oh, okay. One thing. Okay.
Yeah.
I was like,
It could be
oh, there's so
many.
many.
I have a few. I have a few. You can
One
you
thing.
can share more if you have more than one. So for me, it's like drinking tea, eating chocolate, going for a walk.
All the wonderful things. Yes. Especially when you say chocolate, and I was like, wow. Okay. Um, I think for me is the grounding in the morning.
Mm,
Every morning when I get up, some people call it ritual. You can call it anything you want, right? Every morning when I get up, I have a certain process. So my mobile phone only serves the purpose of the alarm, and that's it, full stop. Once
mm.
I off the alarm, and I do not allow myself to snooze. Um, so snoozing is not allowed, just so as to train the brain, right? That you need to be committed to your goals every day. So I do not
Oh,
snooze. So I'll off
I
the
like it.
alarm. Yeah. So I get up, and then I have certain meditative things that I do for about 15 minutes or so.
Mm,
And yeah, so that is something that grounds me throughout the whole day. So I get up
wonderful.
with a very clear purpose. I do my meditation in the morning for about 15 minutes. That's the shorter part in the morning. And then when I stand up, I do centering as a practice. Again, it's a mindfulness practice. And then the day starts off. And throughout the day, there are many more, but this is like the first thing in the day. Yes.
Wonderful.
And of
Wow.
course, the
Really.
chocolate, the coffee, the cakes, and all that are there too.
Yes.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing, and thank you so much for all the information today. And I'm sure all the listeners and the audience who have been watching this here and the replay are learning so much. And thank you for those of you who are watching us live. If you have any questions, do pop them in here. And if we don't answer it now, I'm sure Sunita would love to
Yes.
reply you in the comments. So please feel free to ask any other questions, if about the books or mindfulness. She's our expert. All right.
Thank you.
So without further ado, thank you so much again, Sunita, for joining us.
Thank
And
you,
thank you all of you
Sofie.
who joined us. And we'll see you in the next Hearty Chats. All right. So bye for now.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye.